Boom. Hey, everybody. This is your buddy Carl for the daily Bible reading. And we are in March 24th. March 24. And let's just dive right in. We are in the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 2 and chapter 3. Chapter 2 and 3. Well, let's hit it. Get right into it. Thank you, Lord, for speaking to us through your word. And remember, we are finishing up really the Torah, which would be the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, what they call the 5 books, right? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So we're now in that last book of the opening of the Bible. Chapter 2 goes like this. Then we turned around and headed back across the wilderness toward the Red Sea. So you remember, Moses is almost using Deuteronomy to review. So you're going to hear repetition and things that were already talked about or things that happened in the earlier history of the people. All right, so Moses is recounting, remembering. It says, remembering Israel's wanderings. Yep. Chapter 2. Then we turned around and headed back across the wilderness toward the Red Sea, just as the Lord had instructed me, and we wandered around in the region of Mount Seir for a long time. Then at last the Lord said to me, you have been wandering around in this hill country long enough. Turn to the north. Give these orders to the people. You will pass through the country belonging to your relatives, the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, right, who live in Seir. The Edomites will feel threatened, so be careful. Do not bother them, for I have given them all the hill country around Mount Seir as their property, and I will not give you even 1 square foot of their land. How about that? If you need food to eat or water to drink, pay them for it. For the Lord your God has blessed you in everything you have done. He has watched your every step through this great wilderness. During these 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. And that's true. If you follow the journey of the Israelites through the desert, it was only their impatience or their fear or their boredom or something where they would just forget God. But they always had provision. God always provided. Yes, Lord. Remember that note, folks, especially, well, in any time, but especially these days. God always provides. So we bypassed the territory of our relatives, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. We avoided the road through the Arabah Valley that comes up from Elath and Ezion-Geber. Then as we turned north along the desert route through Moab, the Lord warned us, do not bother the Moabites, the descendants of Lot. So remember, Lot's nephew, right? Or Abraham's nephew was Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah. The Moabites are his descendants. So he says, don't bother them or start a war with them. I have given them Ar, A-R, as their property, and I will not give you any of their land. So God has taken care of these other peoples. A race of giants called the Emites had once lived in the area of Ar. They were as strong and numerous and tall as the Anakites, another race of giants. Both the Emites and the Anakites are also known as the Rephaites, though the Moabites call them Emites. Okay, so all these different Ite clans, right? In earlier times, the Horites had lived in Seir, but they were driven out and displaced by the descendants of Esau, just as Israel drove out the people of Canaan when the Lord gave Israel their land. And I know sometimes we go, Lord, you drove out other people to give your people land. Just have to read the context of history and the ways of culture as it was changing through history and what the Lord was trying to accomplish. Very important. Verse 14, 38 years passed from the time we first left Kadesh Barnea until we finally crossed the Zered Brook. By then, all the men old enough to fight in battle had died in the wilderness. Remember that? Remember the Lord said, that's it. Going to make you wander through the desert until that whole generation passes. And that's what happened. They had all died in the wilderness as the Lord had vowed would happen. The Lord struck them down until they had all been eliminated from the community. When all the men of fighting age had died, the Lord said to me, "Today you will cross the border of Moab at Ar and enter the land of the Ammonites, the descendants of Lot." So some more descendants of Lot, right? You have the Moabites and the Ammonites. Amazing. "But do not bother them or start a war with them. I have given them the land of Ammon to them as their property, and I will not give you any of their land." That area was once considered the land of the Rephaites who had lived there, though the Ammonites called them Zamzumites. How about that name? Zamzumites. They were also as strong and numerous and tall as the Anakites. But the Lord destroyed them so the Ammonites could occupy their land. He had done the same for the descendants of Esau who lived in Seir, for he destroyed the Horites so they could settle there in their place. The descendants of Esau live there to this day. A similar thing happened when the Caphtorites from Crete invaded and destroyed the Avites, who had lived in villages in the area of Gaza. There's Gaza right there. Moses continued, "Then the Lord said, 'Now get moving. Cross the Arnon Gorge. Look, I will hand over to you Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and I will give you his land. Attack him and begin to occupy the land. Beginning today, I will make people throughout the earth terrified because of you.'" Wow, how about that? "When they hear reports about you, they will tremble with dread and fear." So other nations, clans, peoples know that the Israelites are covered by the Lord and that he gives them victory. It would make people fearful if they know that God is, I'd have left if I thought the Israelites are coming and God's given them my land. Time to go. Run for your life. Chapter 2, verse 26. Moses continued, "From the wilderness of Kedemoth I sent ambassadors to King Sihon of Heshbon with this proposal of peace. 'Let us travel through your land. We will stay on the main road and won't turn off into the fields on either side. Sell us food to eat and water to drink, and we will pay you for it. All we want is permission to pass through your land.' The descendants of Esau who live in Seir allowed us to go through their country, and so did the Moabites who live in Ar. Let us pass through until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord our God is giving us." But King Sihon of Heshbon refused to allow us to pass. Remember this? Wow. Wouldn't allow him to pass through because the Lord your God made Sihon stubborn and defiant so he could help you defeat him as he has now done. Now, I've often, like many of you, have questioned, like, "Lord, you made him stubborn and defiant." I would be one to investigate the wording and the language that is pulled from. And I'm making note of that to check these words. There are concordances. You can find a word concordance, and many times I'll do that. I'm like, wait a minute, what was the real word from stubborn and defiant? Was it really that, or was it something else? So always something to consider when you're like, "Lord, you made him that way." What was really said and written? Always remember that in Old Testament, when something kind of hits you funny, many times it's not a good translation from the original Hebrew or Greek, and the English translators sometimes didn't get it right, really. That the choice of words were wrong. Anyway, I'll look that up later. But anyway, for now, we know King Sihon wouldn't let him go, wouldn't let him come through. Then the Lord said to me, "Look, I have begun to hand King Sihon and his land over to you. Begin now to conquer and occupy the land." So there you go. He was stubborn, wouldn't let God's people come through. God's going to deal with that. Then King Sihon declared war on us and mobilized his forces at Jahaz. But the Lord our God handed him over to us, and we crushed him, his sons, and all his people. We conquered all his towns and completely destroyed everyone, men, women, and children. Not a single person was spared. We took all the livestock as plunder for ourselves, along with anything of value from the towns we ransacked. The Lord our God also helped us conquer Aroer, on the edge of the Arnon Gorge, and the town in the gorge, and the whole area as far as Gilead. No town had walls too strong for us. However, we avoided the land of the Ammonites all along the Jabbok River and the towns in the hill country, all the places the Lord our God had commanded us to leave alone. There you go. We're going to get all the way through chapter 3 today, folks. Hang on for the ride. So this is the Israelites getting ready to pass into the Promised Land, still conquering lands and villages. Next, we turned and headed for the land of Bashan, where King Og and his entire army attacked us at Edrei, or Edrei, Edrei. But the Lord told me, do not be afraid of him, for I have given you victory over Og and his entire army, and I will give you all his land. Treat him just as you treated King Sihon of the Amorites who ruled in Heshbon. So the Lord our God handed King Og and all his people over to us, and we killed them all. Not a single person survived. Wow, Lord, that's harsh. There you go. I know, it's amazing. We conquered all 60 of his towns, the entire Argob region in his kingdom of Bashan. Not a single town escaped our conquest. These towns were all fortified with high walls and barred gates. We also took many unwalled villages at the same time. We completely destroyed the kingdom of Bashan, just as we had destroyed King Sihon of Heshbon. We destroyed all the people in every town we conquered, men, women, and children alike. Wow, Lord. But we kept all the livestock for ourselves and took plunder from all the towns. Pause. Now, I know many people read this and thought, man, I can't believe God would do that. I don't know if I can believe in a God like that. I know it's harsh. But this is one of those things that I just have to read over and go Lord, that was a harsh time, something I can't comprehend. And yet we trust the Lord. He knew history. He knew the people. What God was doing with that, I don't fully understand. And theologians and philosophers have debated this kind of thing forever. You can't get stuck on that for long. We just have to trust God with history, seeing the ways of man through time, and know he's dealing with mankind in a certain way to bring about what he wants to see happen. So there you go. I'm moving on. Verse 8, we're in chapter 3 of Deuteronomy, verse 8. So we took the land of the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, all the way from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is called Sirion by the Sidonians, and the Amorites call it Senir, S-E-N-I-R, S-E-N-I-R, Senir. We had now conquered all the cities on the plateau and all Gilead and Bashan, as far as the towns of Selica and Edrei, which were part of Og's kingdom in Bashan. King Og of Bashan, or Bashan, was the last survivor of the giant Rephaites. Ah, a giant. His bed was made of iron and was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. He was a big dude. Wow. It can still be seen in the Ammonite city of Rabbah. Wow. How about that? Here's the land divisions. When we took possession of this land, I gave to the tribes of Reuben and Gad the territory beyond Aroer, along with the Arnon Gorge, plus half of the hill country of Gilead with its towns. Then I gave the rest of Gilead and all of Bashan, Og's former kingdom, to the half-tribe of Manasseh. This entire Argob region of Bashan used to be known as the land of the Rephaites. Jair, a leader from the tribe of Manasseh, conquered the whole Argob region in Bashan, all the way to the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites. Jair renamed this region after himself, calling it the towns of Jair, as it is still known today. I gave Gilead to the clan of Machir, but I also gave part of Gilead to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. The area I gave them extended from the middle of the Arnon Gorge in the south to the Jabbok River on the Ammonite frontier. They also received the Jordan Valley all the way from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea, with the Jordan River serving as the western boundary. To the east were the slopes of Pisgah. At that time I gave this command to the tribes that would live east of the Jordan. Although the Lord your God has given you this land as your property, all your fighting men must cross the Jordan ahead of your Israelite relatives, armed and ready to assist them. Your wives, children, and numerous livestock, however, may stay behind in the towns I have given you. When the Lord has given security to the rest of the Israelites as he has to you, and when they occupy the land the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan River, then you may all return here to the land I have given you. At that time I gave Joshua this charge. You have seen for yourself everything the Lord your God has done to these two kings. He will do the same to all the kingdoms on the west side of the Jordan. Do not be afraid of the nations there, for the Lord your God will fight for you. At that time I pleaded with the Lord and said, O sovereign Lord, you have only begun to show your greatness and the strength of your hand to me, your servant. Is there any God in heaven or on earth who can perform such great and mighty deeds as you do? No, of course not. I inserted that. No, he can't. Verse 25, please let me cross the Jordan to see the wonderful land on the other side, the beautiful hill country and the Lebanon mountains. But here you go, Moses. Here's what happened. But the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he would not listen to me. That's enough, he declared. Speak of it no more. But go up to Pisgah, peak, and look over the land in every direction. Take a good look, but you may not cross the Jordan. Sorry, Moses. Instead, commission Joshua, son of Nun, and encourage him and strengthen him, for he will lead the people across the Jordan. He will give them all the land you now see before you as their possession. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. And there you go. So that's what's coming for Moses. Joshua is going to lead the people across, and Moses is only going to get to watch. Wow, Lord. I knew that. I've read that, and I still, I'm amazed at that. Okay, let's move on. Today's psalm reading is Psalm 65. Pardon me while I get a little drink of water. Thank you. Getting a little dry there. Thank you all. Psalm 67 today. Yeah, 67. Yes, excuse me. This author is probably anonymous, possibly written for one of the harvest festivals. The theme is joy comes from spreading the news about God around the world. Psalm 67, for the choir director, a song, a psalm to be accompanied by stringed instruments. Probably not guitars, but who knows what all the Israelites have. Harps, other stringed instruments. Strum, may God be merciful and bless us. May his face smile with favor on us. May your ways be known throughout the earth, your saving power among people everywhere. May the nations praise you, O God. Yes, may all the nations praise you. Let the whole world sing for joy, because you govern the nations with justice and guide the people of the whole world. May the nations praise you, O God. Yes, may all the nations praise you. Then the earth will yield its harvest, and God, our God, will richly bless us. Yes, God will bless us, and people all over the world will fear him. And that's true. Fear him and be in awe of him. So yes, Lord. Let's move on. Today's proverb on the 24th is Proverbs 11. Yeah, Proverbs 11, verse 27. Just one verse to meditate on in Proverbs. If you search for good, you will find favor. But if you search for evil, it will find you. Wow, Lord. If you want good, if you desire good, if you're seeking it good, you'll find favor, you'll find good. But there you go. But if you like evil or have a dark heart, if you search for evil and go that way, it finds you. It will find you. It's not like you just get to be evil and dispense it on people. It's like, yeah, what you plant in seed brings that fruit. Help us, Lord. All right. Today's reading, March 24th. Luke. We're in the book of Luke, verse 12 through 38. I'm going to pass on that. I'll check the messages later. So verse 12, Luke 6, verse 12. One day soon afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray. He prayed to God all night. Wow. At daybreak, he called together all of his disciples and chose 12 of them, 12, to be apostles. Here are their names. Simon, whom he named Peter. Andrew, Peter's brother. James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called the Zealot. So we had another Simon, Judas, son of James, and another Judas Iscariot, who we know will later betray Jesus. There's the 12. So he gathered all of his, so he had many disciples, folks. This is interesting. Jesus' followers, people that were following in his way. So Jesus had many disciples. The 12 were going to get special training. Doesn't mean that we don't become apostles and disciples. And some people will feel, I want to throw that in because some people feel like, well, there's the 12, and after they died, that was it. No, they were escalating the kingdom or fulfilling Jesus' promise. But Jesus gathered around him 12 he could pour more into at that time. So it doesn't mean we don't move in the things that Jesus and the apostles did throughout church history. We should live like that. So we are disciples, apostles, evangelists, teachers, pastors, right? The fivefold ministry, they call that apostles, prophets, evangelists, teachers, and pastors. So apostles, prophets, evangelists. I usually say the apes. They're tough guys. Apostles, prophets, evangelists. Ape, teachers, shepherds, the ones that are more gentle in a way. But anyway, there's more than that, but that's the basic fivefold ministry of the church. Okay, a little side note there. Moving on. When they came down from the mountain, the disciples stood with Jesus on a large level area surrounded by many of his followers and by the crowds. There were people from all over Judea and from Jerusalem and from as far north as the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases, and those troubled by evil spirits were healed. So, Jesus was healing sickness, he was healing torment, in other words, evil spirits, and spiritual issues, or like emotional issues. Amazing. Everyone tried to touch him because healing power went out from him, and he healed everyone. Wow. So much right there in a couple verses to grasp and to meditate on, or just to believe. Yeah, Lord, you heal everyone. It's available to all of us. Then Jesus turned to his disciples and said, God blesses you who are poor in spirit, for the kingdom of God is yours. God blesses you who are hungry now, for you will be satisfied. This translation gets a little sideways, people, because sometimes we feel like, well, does God bless the poor? Well, he does. Does he bless the hungry? Well, yeah. And are they always satisfied? Well, this gets sketchy, but you have to look at wow, translations sometimes mean it. And I know from other translations, like my NLT says, God blesses you who are poor. Well, the full translation is God blesses the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of God is yours. In other words, poor in spirit means that I know I need him, not just poverty. Now, God takes care of the poor and wants the church. We should take care of people in need. But the overlying thing, we're getting into the Beatitudes here, and we have to remember what did the Lord really say? So things like this, people, I'm reminded to make sure your translations hit the whole thing. So I'm putting here other translation, or look up the original. That's very important. Not to diminish our call to help, but there's bigger pictures here, folks. God blesses you are hungry now, for you will be satisfied. No, the original is God blesses those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Wow. That's a lot bigger than just having your stomach growling, folks. God blesses you who weep now. God blesses those who mourn, for in due time you'll laugh. What blessings await you when people hate you and exclude you and mock you and curse you as evil because you follow the Son of Man, for following Jesus. That is true. That's right on. When that happens, be happy. Yes, leap for joy, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, their ancestors treated the ancient prophets the same way. Wow. What sorrow awaits you who are rich, for you have your only happiness now. What sorrow awaits you who are fat and prosperous now, for a time of awful hunger awaits you. What sorrow awaits you who laugh now, for your laughing will turn to mourning and sorrow. What sorrow awaits you who are praised by the crowds, for their ancestors also praised false prophets. So folks, again, be careful with how we judge this. Doesn't mean rich people are all cursed, or people that are prospering are cursed. It's the position that people hold within the context of that. In other words, arrogance and pride, godlessness, that's the key to that. So it's some of this is a little bit, sometimes when we try to use new language, it doesn't get the whole weight of it. And it also feels the sense of like, well, yeah, all those people are bad. That's not what the scriptures actually say. Okay, so sometimes there's the call for a really strong analysis of the original language of a scripture, and that to me would call for that. Anyway, side note. So I've got here study, and I've heard the Beatitudes from many translations, but it makes me want to check that. Jesus teaches about loving enemies. This is always important. Verse 27, but to you who are willing to listen, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Well, there's the golden rule of life, right? Jesus is even preaching the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. That is always overlying. And the big picture of all of the law and the prophets and all of Scripture, Jesus even said the greatest commandments are what? Love God with all your being, with all that you are. 2 is to love your neighbor as yourself. And they were even asking Jesus, well, who's my neighbor? Is it just people that are my neighbor or people I love? No. That's when he goes into the parable of the Good Samaritan, somebody that was an outcast, and the Good Samaritan goes by and helps the person on the road. So loving God, loving people, the greatest 2 commandments. Okay, so I'm reading, that's up to where we're supposed to land today. So, oh, no, we get to 38, my bad. So let's go ahead and finish up through verse 38. Man, the golden rule, I have it there. Verse 32 right now. If you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. And if you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners will lend to other sinners for a full return. They're just navigating money. Do we give freely without expectation in return? Unless you're in the business of loaning money. Don't misunderstand this. It's when are you able to give generously and trust the Lord? When the Lord tells us to give to a charity or just to help someone, just bless people and be free. But ask the Lord. It's always in obedience to the leading of the Lord. And here he's calling for us to be very much aware of taking care of people. Verse 35. Yeah, I'll pick it up there. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. Pause. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. Pause. God is kind to the unthankful, and the wicked. Folks, that's a whole different shift of the paradigm from what we're reading in the Old Testament, right? You get that? That's why it's so important to realize what happened in Jesus with the new covenant life. It's a whole raising of the bar of how to live life in the Spirit and to live truly like sons and daughters of the Most High God. So important. So help us, Lord, to live like that. Verse 37, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn others, or it will all come back against you. Forgive others, and you will be forgiven. Give, and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make more room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount you get back. That is always true. I love that. Press down, shaken together. You ever take a bowl of something and shake it and press it down? Oh, there's more in there. And God takes care. When we're generous and free, God always provides back. Remember that. We have to see God's way of living and God's way of economy, God's way of being in peace. Man, there's so much to chew on there, and that's good stuff. I'm going to pause there as the daily reading calls for. Bless you all. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.